Have you ever watched a movie a dozen times and still found something new every single time? Howl's Moving Castle is that kind of film. It's layered like an onion. Every time you peel something back, you realize there's a whole other meaning underneath. There's one detail that completely changes how I see it. If Howl gave away his heart to Calcifer, who's actually in love with Sophie? Is it Howl or is it Calcifer? Because if Calcifer is his heart, then Sophie doesn't just fall in love with Howl. She spends the entire story falling in love with the part of him that feels, the part he hides, the part that still burns. And that, to me, is what this story is really about. So today we're pulling that thread, because once you start tugging at Calcifer, you start unraveling the entire meaning of Howl's Moving Castle. Every time I watch Calcifer move, I can't help but think, how is this little flame more expressive than half of Hollywood? He's just two eyes and a mouth, yet he conveys joy, fear, sarcasm, exhaustion, all at once. That's no accident. Hayao Miyazaki, the director, builds his stories on a Japanese belief called Shinto, which says that everything, yes everything, has a spirit, or kami. Rocks, rivers, fire, even your favorite coffee mug. It's all alive in some small way. So when Calcifer groans or laughs, it's not just for laughs. It's part of that worldview. Fire in Shinto represents energy, transformation, and life itself. And Calcifer embodies all three. He's the literal energy of the castle, the force that keeps everyone alive. And at the same time, he's changing, burning, fading, and reigniting, just like us. He's funny, but he's also fragile. He's powerful, but he's also stuck. And that balance makes him feel real. In psychology, there's a term by Carl Jung, the shadow self. It's that part of us we usually hide, like our fears, our insecurities, our temper, or our softness. The shadow isn't evil, it's just the stuff we repress. Calcifer is Howl's shadow. He's the part of Howl that burns quietly behind all the glamour and confidence. He's that part that's tired, snarky, emotional, and still keeps everything moving anyway. So when Sophie meets Calcifer, it's like she's seeing Howl's real personality for the first time, just in flame form. Here's where it gets interesting. If Calcifer represents Howl's shadow, then Sophie's journey isn't about breaking a curse. It's about learning to care for someone's shadow, the parts they hide from the world. And if that's not real love, then I don't know what is. Calcifer's hilarious, right? But underneath every joke is a sigh. Every sarcastic comment feels like it's covering for exhaustion.
Here's another curse. May all your bacon burn.
It's funny, but it's also the cry of someone who's completely overworked and underappreciated. He's holding up the whole house, keeping everyone warm, running on fumes, and still being expected to stay cheerful. Sound familiar? He's basically every person who's ever said, no, it's fine, when it's definitely not fine. That's where the psychology really lands. Sigmund Freud once said humor is a way of turning pain into something bearable. It's a pressure valve for stress. That's exactly what Calcifer does. His jokes are coping mechanisms. But Sophie doesn't buy the act. She sees through it almost immediately. She sits beside him, feeds him more wood, and says softly,
You're a first-class fire demon. I like your spark.
She likes my spark!
That's such a small line, but it's the moment the entire castle starts moving again. Literally. The second she says it, Calcifer glows brighter, and the house lurches forward. It's symbolic, but also psychological. Carl Rogers, one of the founding humanistic psychologists, talked about unconditional positive regard. Basically, that means loving someone without trying to fix them. That's what Sophie gives Calcifer. Kindness without strings. And because Calcifer is Howl's heart, that act of kindness travels straight to him. The moment Sophie feeds the fire, she's feeding Howl's capacity to love. There's this pattern that keeps repeating in the film. Sophie gives warmth, Calcifer gets stronger, Howl becomes softer, and the world outside becomes less cold. That's the feedback loop of empathy. It's love as energy exchange, not an obligation. In a way, Calcifer's like the pilot light of a relationship. The little flame that keeps everything else going. If you stop tending to it, the warmth dies, even if everything else looks fine on the surface. And that raises the big question. How deep does the warmth go? Because this isn't just emotional connection, it's temporal. There's a moment at the beginning of the movie that almost everyone forgets. Howl swoops down, rescues Sophie, and says, "There you are, sweetheart. I've been looking everywhere for you." At first it sounds like pure charm, Howl being Howl, but later it becomes clear that he meant it literally. Because when Sophie travels back in time near the end of the movie, she sees Howl as a boy catching a falling star, or Calcifer. She tells him, "Find me in the future." And he does. That one detail flips the whole movie on its head. It means Howl's been looking for her ever since. Her words, her voice, her presence, they've been living inside the heart he gave away to Calcifer. There's this viral post that sums it up perfectly. It says, "What she says is, I'm fine. But what she really means is, Sophie went back in time, told Howl to find her, and he's been looking for her ever since." And honestly, that's exactly it. Howl's first line to Sophie, "I've been looking everywhere for you," isn't just charm. It's the payoff to a promise he made years ago, without even realizing it. It's the kind of storytelling that feels like a time loop and a love story all at once. In Japanese, there is a word for this, en. It means an invisible bond that connects people across time and circumstance. Not destiny as in meant to be, but destiny as in meant to cross paths. That's Howl and Sophie. Their love isn't random, it's continuity. It's something that's been burning quietly across years, memories, and hearts. And that's what makes Calcifer so vital. He's not just a side character, he's the literal link between the past and the present. The fire that remembers both who Howl was and who he's becoming. It's kind of poetic, right? Love is memory, fire has connection. You can even think of Calcifer as a hard drive, storing everything Howl can't consciously carry. Every emotion, every promise, every moment of vulnerability lives in that flame. So when Sophie talks to Calcifer, she's really talking to Howl's subconscious, the part that knows her even when his mind doesn't. And that's why their love feels inevitable, but never forced. Because it's not about fate, it's about emotional gravity. Two souls orbiting the same flame until they finally realize it's the same one. Once the curse breaks, Calcifer finally rises into the air. He's free. The deal is done. The heart's restored. He can go wherever he wants. But then, he comes back. That moment says more about love than any confession ever could. Because real love in this movie isn't about possession, it's about choice. Calcifer doesn't return because he has to. He returns because he wants to. Because freedom isn't always about leaving, it's about knowing where you belong and choosing it anyway. The castle mirrors that perfectly. When Calcifer leaves, it falls apart. When he returns, it rebuilds. Smaller, simpler, but steadier. It's not a fortress anymore, it's a home. It's kind of like life after burnout. You rebuild, not as big, but stronger where it matters. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said true freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's choosing your commitments. That's exactly what Calcifer does. And that ties back to a Japanese concept called wabi-sabi, finding beauty in imperfection and impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, and that's what makes it precious. Calcifer's flame will fade one day, but while it burns, it gives warmth. Howl, Sophie, and Calcifer end the movie not bound by magic, but by mutual choice. They don't own each other, they care for each other. And maybe that's the lesson hiding under all the magic. You can't force someone to stay, but you can give them enough warmth that they want to. Love is just that, a fire you keep alive. Not with grand gestures, but with small, steady acts of care. A log here, a spark there. That's why the ending works so well. The curse is broken, but they still keep tending to the fire, because they know that's what love really is. When I watched Howl's Moving Castle, I thought it was a whimsical story about a wizard and a curse. Now it feels more like a study in emotional labor, vulnerability, and shared healing. Howl hides behind appearances. Calcifer burns himself out, keeping everyone safe. And Sophie, the one who's ordinary, ends up being the person who restores balance, simply just by caring. That's what makes Ghibli so special. The magic is never just about spells, it's about people learning to love in ways that don't destroy them. If you think about it, Calcifer's story is ours too. We all carry a little flame that keeps things moving. A dream, a person, a hope. And sometimes it burns low. But if someone shows up and says, "I like your spark," it's enough to make you keep going. Calcifer's the piece of us that's tired but still hopeful. The part that jokes about the weight it carries but never puts it down. He's not just the heart of the castle. He's the heart of what it means to be human. So maybe the question isn't, who's in love with Sophie? Maybe it's, who keeps our own hearts burning when we're too tired to? Because that's what Howl's Moving Castle is really asking. What's keeping your flame alive? If you liked this one, check out My Neighbor Totoro is Deeper Than You Think. It's about how Ghibli hides powerful stories of resilience and imagination behind its softest films.